Hi, and welcome to your 9th lecture in Russian for Complete Beginners, in which we'll focus on numbers 60 to 1000. We'll talk about time, prices, and we'll find out how to use Russian adverbs. Now let's start with numbers 60 to 90. In the previous lecture, we have seen the word for 50, which was 50, and we said that it looked like 5 times 10. We can see here that numbers 60, 70, and 80 follow the same pattern. 90, same as 40, 40, is an exception. I'm going to read each number out twice, and I would encourage you to repeat after me. 60, 60, 70, 70, 80, 80, 90, 90. Excellent, well done. Now the last three letters in number 90 are 100, which also stands for 100. So we can think of 90 as the nearest 10 number to 100, and that will help us memorize it. Now let's go through numbers 100 to 900. I'm going to read each number out twice, and I would encourage you to repeat after me. 100, 100, 200, 200, 300, 300, 400, 400, 500, 500, 600, 600, 700, 700, 800, 800, 900, 900. Excellent, well done. Now we can see that the endings of these 100 numbers are different forms of the word 100, and numbers 500 to 900 all end in sot. Now, the very last number that we're going to have a look at today is 1000. Тысяча. Тысяча. Now, the principle of putting these numbers together is the same as we've seen in the previous lecture. Let's have a look at some examples. The word for examples in Russian is примеры. Примеры. I'm going to read each number out twice, and I would encourage you to repeat them after me. 121, 121, 121, 236, 236, 236, 440, 440, 440, 1323, 1323, 1323, 1099, 1099, 1099. Excellent, well done. Now let's move on to talking about prices. We have come across the verb стоить, стоить, in the previous lectures, which stands for to cost. We can see that this verb belongs to the second group, since it has e in front of the soft sign ending. Therefore, it will conjugate accordingly. Now, to ask for the cost of anything, we will need the question tag how much, сколько, plus the verb стоить in the correct form, which is either going to be стоит, third singular form that stands for it, or in case of inquiring about the cost of an item which is in plural, such as jeans, джинсы, or glasses, очки, we will use third plural form, that stands for they. Стоят. Стоят. As a result, a question for how much is the coffee becomes сколько стоит кофе. Let's have a look at different forms of the word ruble, which is a Russian currency. Рубль, рубля, рублей. You will notice here that the pattern that we use for prices is the same one as we used for age in the previous lecture. If the number is 1 or ends in 1, we're going to say рубль. If the number is 2, 3, 4, or ends in 2, 3, or 4, we're going to say рубля. For any other numbers between 5 and the next 0, including the teen numbers, we're going to say рублей. Remember that regardless of how big or small the number or the price is, even if it's millions or billions, it is the very last digit that affects the choice of the correct word that goes with it. Now let's see how we can use this in a conversation. I'm going to read the dialogue till the end first and then translate it. Please feel free to pause and rewind this section at any time in order to practice your pronunciation. Извините, сколько стоит стол? Он стоит 900 рублей. А стул? Он стоит 720 рублей. Ой, как дешево! Да, сегодня распродажа. Отлично, спасибо. Excuse me, how much does the table cost? It costs 900 rubles. And a chair? It costs 720 rubles. Wow, how cheap. Yes, the sale is on today. Great, thank you. Let's have a look at the second dialogue. Простите, сколько стоит кофе? 350 рублей. Как дорого. А чай? 150 рублей. Хорошо, это недорого. Можно, пожалуйста, один чай? Конечно. Pardon me, how much does the coffee cost? 350 rubles. How expensive. And tea? 150 rubles. Good, that's not expensive. Could I possibly have one tea? Of course. Please note two new adverbs that we used in the dialogue. Дешево, cheaply, or it is cheap, and дорого, dearly, or it is expensive. Majority of adverbs end in o in Russian, and they do not change their ending. Also, note the usage of the negative не in front of one of them, недорого, which turns it into not expensive. Another useful word used in a dialogue is можно, можно, which stands for one can or is it possible. This word can be used as a question to ask whether something is possible or whether you can do something. As in, could I possibly have a coffee? Можно кофе, пожалуйста? Now lastly, let's have a look at the way of telling time. Now the good news is that the pattern used for telling time is the one that we have seen used before with age constructions and prices. Now we're going to need words for hour and minute, which are час, час, and minuta, minuta. So for any number that is 1 or ends in 1, we're going to use час for hour and minuta for minute. Any number that is 2, 3, or 4 or ends in 2, 3, or 4, we're going to use часа and минуты. For any number that is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 0, or any number that ends in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0, including the teen numbers, we're going to use часов and минут. Please take your time to study this page before you move on. Notice that the word время, время, which stands for time, is one of the exceptions, and even though it looks like a feminine noun because it ends in a ya, it is actually grammatically neuter. We tend to use the 12-hour clock in Russian, and so when we need to specify that something happened at 3 a.m. rather than 3 p.m., we use the familiar version of words we have come across before, such as утро, день, вечер, and ночь. Let's go through these examples. Утро becomes утра, день becomes дня, вечер becomes вечера, and ночь becomes ночи. As a result, the question for what time is it now becomes сколько сейчас времени? Сколько сейчас времени? Let's have a look at some examples. I'm going to read each dialogue to Leon first and then translate it. Сколько сейчас времени? Сейчас 8 часов утра. What time is it now? It's 8 o'clock in the morning. Сколько сейчас времени? Сейчас 10 часов вечера. What time is it now? It's 10 o'clock in the evening. Please feel free to pause and rewind any section of this lecture in order to work on your understanding of these constructions. Now let's see how we can use all of this new material in a conversation. Сколько сейчас времени? Сейчас 2 часа дня. Время ужинать? Конечно, нет. В 2 часа дня рано ужинать. А когда можно ужинать? Я думаю, в 6 часов вечера. What time is it now? It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Is it time to have dinner? Of course not. It's early to have dinner at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And when is it possible to have dinner? I think at 6 o'clock in the evening. Когда ты начинаешь работать? В 11 часов утра. Как поздно? Да, я начинаю в 11 часов утра, а заканчиваю в 9 часов вечера. What time do you start work? At 11 o'clock in the morning. How late? Yes, I start at 11 o'clock in the morning and I finish at 9 o'clock in the evening. Note the new words used in these dialogues. Рано, early, когда, when, preposition в, which stands for either at or in, поздно, late, and a new verb заканчивать, to finish. We have come across the verb начинать, to begin, in the supplementary materials in Lecture 6. Please feel free to pause and rewind these dialogues as many times as necessary in order to work on your pronunciation. Well done! You have worked really hard in this lecture and you have done really well. In this lecture, you have learned how to use numbers 60 to 1000 and how to talk about time and prices of items. Overall, including the additional vocabulary in the supplementary materials attached to this lecture, you have familiarized yourselves with 35 new Russian words. As usual, remember to download supplementary material which contains additional new vocabulary, as well as the Test Yourself file with exercises designed to reinforce the new information covered in this lecture. Thank you for today and speak to you soon.